This session's an overview of Sage X3. We're going to tag team some of the slides so that you get a different variety of people speaking with you. We do like to have our sessions as interactive as possible. And so if you have questions, don't hesitate to blurt out questions, ask us whatever you want. This day is all about you. As much as it's celebrating BAS's 35 years in business, at the end of the day, we're here because of you. And our mandate is to support you. That's what we do. So this session's all about you. Use it for your time. Get the information that you need out of it, okay? So Denis, where do we start?
Is this working? Oh, yeah, there it is. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure what time it is. I haven't come from the West Coast, so you know they say east is beast, west is best. So I'm kind of feeling like I could use about another 6 hours sleep because I think I was up at 3 a.m. my time. But anyway, it's great to be here and really proud to be here and work with BAS and support you guys the best we can. Like Jeff said, we are very involved in the process and the sales cycle. So anytime you need to reach out to us, we're happy to help. What is Sage X3? So Sage X3 provides faster, more intuitive, and tailored business management solutions than the conventional ERP. For organizations looking to thrive and retain their competitive advantage by increasing their agility and embracing change at speed. Sorry, I'm super thirsty. Hang on 1 sec. That's Jeff's fault. Oh, and by the way, if you do have questions, Jeff will answer them all. Okay, so along with a comprehensive multinational business management, Sage X3 does offer support for various industry verticals. And of course, those range from food and bev, manufacturing, all the way through to the industrial machinery, manufacturing, FMCG distribution, and this ability to support multiple adjacent verticals that allows Sage X3 to support the entire value chain. And that would be from seed to sale or farm to fork. You have the next slide. All right, we're going to go through some numbers here. So just give you a bit of an idea of how X3 is everywhere, as you can see. So we have 625K users of end users worldwide. We've got 1,300 certified consultants, 50 ISV partners, 5,500 customers. We're in 80 countries with over 480 partners worldwide, 18 industry verticals, and 15 language packs. So that gives you a short synopsis of X3, and then I think I hand this over to Jeff. Denny.
If I may add on that, I mean, as I highlighted earlier, right? Like it's when you think about X3, organizations with more complex need, right? Deeper functionality, whether it's warehousing, deeper functionality in manufacturing. If you're dealing in multiple countries, right? But perhaps you have a mix of maybe it's you're mainly distributing, but part of the operation is maybe light manufacturing. It'll handle that as well. I mean, we're not going to talk a whole lot today about like project management, but there are, and I will go through a list as we wrap up the day today on features of other modules, and we're going to mainly focus on the distribution and wholesale. But I really, the message we want to convey is it's not just, and again, I know a lot of the people in the audience today, you're mostly into distribution and manufacturing, but we're positioning X3 as, again, more complex organizations, dealing globally, compliance is an issue. That's where, and again, not to talk negatively about Intac or 300, they definitely have their niche market, but I mean, if you're one of those organizations with more complex needs, you're definitely in the right track today.
So who's our typical Sage X3 customer? As Denis was mentioning, Sage X3 is really for that multi. It's multilingual, it's multi-currency, it's multi-entity, multi-jurisdiction. So companies, as Denis was mentioning, have complex requirements, whether that be where they are geographically located, Europe, Canada, US, China, dealing with inventory movements across those different jurisdictions, planning, so the complex requirements. Now, it's a bit of an eye chart there. I'm not going to go through and read all of it. I think that if you're in this room, you're probably experiencing some of these things. Some of the people that I spoke to before we started the session, inventory is a challenge, planning, reporting and budgeting. So how do we get there with Sage X3? Streamlining processes from a cloud-based environment. Sage X3, we'll talk about technology a little bit later, but Sage X3 is a native web-based application that just gives you that pure mobility out of the box. But then where do you host it? Do you host it on-prem? Do you host it in a single-tenant private cloud? There's technology decisions that have to be made. When you're talking about the complex requirements with scalability and global compliance is everything from, if you're in food and beverage, Health Canada, or in the States, the FDA. If you're talking ISO, what type of process compliance, what type of government compliance do you want to have or do you need to have? And that gets right down also into taxation, into IFRS reporting, whether you're doing leases, whether you're on your financial statements, whatever that may be. Sage 300 and Sage Intacct can do those things too, but oftentimes they require a lot of third-party add-ons. So part of the power of Sage 300 is that ecosystem of ISV solutions, but it's also the Achilles heel, because now you have this bit of a Frankenstein solution where you have all these so-called bolt-ons, where a lot of those bolt-ons are inherent features, functionality within Sage X3. Denny? So again, different types of companies that you have. Manufacturing distribution is where Sage X3 is typically marketed to, or typically that's where Sage wants to put the solution into organizations that are in manufacturing and distribution, whether it be process, whether it be discrete, make to order, make to stock. There is also the ability for Sage X3 to manage engineer to order with the CAD integrations, whether it be AutoCAD, SolidWorks, and others. Native integrations with those solutions. You can take your CAD drawings and flip that straight into manufacturing orders. So then where else can Sage X3 go? Denis mentioned briefly project management, contract management, so service-based organizations. When you get into financial services, again, multi-entity, more complicated financial reporting with the embedded SEI or Sage Enterprise Intelligence tool, it comes with Sage X3. Licensing is a little bit different because it's not all your Sage X3 users need access to the SEI solution, but it is the only business intelligence tool that's embedded within the Sage X3 framework. And then for the non-X3 users that still need to have the access to dashboards, reporting, analytics, you still have the web-based, you have the web, so the web interface, you also have Excel add-ins, or Nectaria or SEI has also created their own web-based spreadsheet, which is like Excel. It's not Excel, but it works just like Excel. Denny?
That's it. So before I jump into actually get into the product, because I'm sure some of you or most of you are here not just to see slides, but actually see the product in action. So who, just by the raise of hands, I know that some organizations actually are on X3 right now, so hopefully they've seen it. But who has not seen X3 previously? Okay, super, excellent. That's good. So again, we have the next 40 minutes or so, or maybe half an hour or so, I'll be doing an overview. It's more of a, give you a feel for navigation side of things. We're not going to go deep into functionality. I mean, we'd be here for a typical X3 demo would last, maybe 3-4 hours easily. But the idea is just to kind of give you a feel for navigation. What does it look like? Some of the features in there. We will go over very briefly of the different functionalities and different modules, but again, from a high overview standpoint. Then these following 2 sessions will focus on distribution, then we'll focus on manufacturing. So we're going to be taking orders for jalapeno bean dips today, and then selling it from one site, and then we'll have a second site set up to manufacture those jalapeno bean dips. So we'll run some MRPs, and I'll kind of use those jalapeno bean dips example or scenario to point out the deeper functionality of X3, whether it's location management, whether it's container management, capacity management, whether it's the full depth of the functionality of the MRP. So just kind of point out the different strength of the solution. If you do have, again, as Jeff mentioned, if you do have specific questions or you want me to elaborate, perhaps, again, I'll be careful that we're limited on time. I can't really go down a rabbit hole or spend a whole lot of time on a topic. But by all means, I mean, if you have If you have questions, just raise them. I mean, we're here for you, so we're not here. We've seen it before. I mean, I eat and breathe it, and have dreams and nightmares depending on the night about it. So, and again, this is really for you. So, okay. And then we have some sessions later on today for more around, again, validating the partners, but understanding, I guess, because X3, when I was speaking with Jimmy earlier on, he says, well, that's a big investment. Yes, it's a big investment, not just dollar-wise, but people-wise, time-wise. What does it look like, right? What does it look like from a project perspective? What should we expect? So we'll kind of walk you through today those, talk about the product, but also, hey, we've got your back, we've got you. I mean, as a partner, we can help you implement. And we actually have, like I know Armin's here today in the front, and Sam, and yeah, but I wanted to mention Armin because we're actually into an implementation right now. So with his organization, and we have some existing X3 customers. So again, don't be shy of, if you want to go talk to Sam and Natasha on the back table or Armin about, how their experience so far with BAS on the implementation. By all means, this is what this conference is all about. And of course, you can come to. So the idea, I'm running X3 on a VM here on my laptop. It's actually running multiple servers. X3 is web-based, right? So I'm accessing this right now from Chrome. I could be using other browsers as well. So it is a fully web-based. I know we spoke about Intact, we spoke about 300 this morning, but natively X3 is a web-based product. From a hosting perspective, we have a mix of on-prem hosting, so clients would actually host it on their premises, or we do have the BAS Cloud offer as well. So through Lenetco, our sister company, we can offer hosting services, or in the case, we also have implementations right now where we're using either AWS or we're using the Google Cloud. I mean, there's different options, but the key though is we don't need to go through RDS or remote desktop or terminal server to access X3, right? So I can access this from, again, a browser or from a mobile device as well. So I'll log in most of today. I'll be logging in as Mod X3. The reason why I'm logging in as Mod X3, you can set some preferences, whether it's sites or access to certain modules and functions. So users would log in. This can do a different authentication method as well. So I'm just selecting right now on this demo the X3 standard authentication. Let me see. From the X3 perspective, and I'll be talking about this, but from an architecture perspective, so right now I'm into the seed folder. When we can implement a pilot folder, so we'll basically build a test database and then eventually create the production folder, and you can have like a dev folder, so you can have multiple folders into that database, but it's everything that we're seeing today is a single database, right? So the architecture, again, you heard me this morning, I'm going to mention multi many times today. So in the case of multiple companies, multiple sites, you don't need to log out of a company to log back into the company. So every transactions within X3 is tied to a site whose site is naturally tied to a company. Okay, and we'll actually talk a little bit more about this a bit later on in this segment. But think about this, everything I'm doing today, I'll actually be dealing mostly in one company, but I could have 3, 4, 5, 20 companies all into a single database. Okay. So as I log in from a navigation standpoint, as I log into X3, think about X3 as you've got your tier 1 and your tier, let's say tier 3 solutions. So X3 kind of fits in between. So it does come pre-configured with some process, some screens. So you don't have to if you take like an SAP ANA, I mean, you kind of take the wrap off and it's like, okay, now let's go and build it. Let's build the process. Let's build the screen. If you look at X3, it comes pre-configured with your process. So if you basically implement vanilla, and that's typically how we suggest implementing, kind of go crawl, walk, run. So before getting too fancy into customizing X3, let's take advantage of the basic, having the core financials and the core whether it's distribution or manufacturing, your core requirements met, and then expand on it. But from a navigation standpoint, as I log in, on the left-hand side, I can see that there's multiple roles that are set up. So for instance, if I'm the warehouse manager, if I click on this, I have pre-built process flows and gadgets available for me for when I log into X3. okay? So if I look at the business process, for instance, from a warehouse manager, well, I would typically do maybe shipments and prepare shipping. I would pack, I would deliver, right? So those process flows would be how users after the implementation or during the implementation, that's how they would typically access the different functionality of X3. Okay, so it comes with, I believe there's over 36 pre-configured roles. There's over 150 pre-configured process map. So those process map during the X3 implementations will deliver, transfer the knowledge for your team to be able to go and create new ones or modify new ones. If you look at the BAS Connect, for instance, I've created my own page for this. I've just added the logo. I mean, it took me 20 seconds to add the logo to it, but you can modify any one of those workflows. Okay, trying to gauge trying to get a resolution that's kind of in between the. Yeah, we'll keep it at that. So. So that's one thing. So from a navigating, accessing the screen or getting to the actual screen that if you want to do a sales orders, I would, again, people using X3 would typically follow their process flows and then just basically access the sales order screen from that shortcut. Okay, totally customizable. Those screens or those process flows would either be by user specifically or perhaps by role. Okay. Because as I mentioned, it comes pre-configured with roles. You can create your own landing page. In this case, I've added the process manufacturing process map. We'll go over the other ones toward the tail end of these sessions this morning. But if I want to add as a user, if I wanted to add another process or another query, all I got to do as a user is click on the plus and perhaps add another process flows. I can add queries, I can add stats, representations, calendars, I can add web links. Again, users don't have to get out of the X3 to access either another solution, but or perhaps I know what you'll see a bit later on today with Nectari. I believe it's Olivia that's going to present the Nectari piece. That SEI can be embedded right in those gadgets, right within X3. Okay, so if I look, for instance, at a process, I don't know. Let's say I wanted to show all. I wanted to have a query for. Sorry, not a process, but I want to add a query. So if I want to add a query, and it's let's pick sales for the modules. Let's pick orders, and let's say I want to see all open orders. So if I click on open sales orders. And I click on OK. So that query was built, right? Was pre-built. Now users are able to bring it to their desktop. Now in this case, you're seeing open sales orders from multiple sites. There'd be ways to add parameters to those queries. So if I'm working from the Toronto sites, if I'm working from the New Brunswick sites, then I could basically have pre-filters on these to only show the particular sites. And again, remember, like in X3. You're never picking a company. You're picking a site that's tied to a company. So a company can have multiple sites, but everything is all about sites within X3. Okay, so again, I just wanted to show you the ability for users, for themselves, to go in and add, the gadgets or add the process flows or add the queries as required. Okay, yes. Talking about both, actually. So one company could have multiple sites, okay? So one company, in the case, I'll take your example, Armin. So these guys do manufacturing. So they have one main site for manufacturing, but they also have subcontracting sites that does manufacturing for them. They may own part of the inventory at those sites. So their company, so let's say Company Inc., or, Canada Inc. as one company, and then they have their main site and perhaps their financial sites. Perhaps they have a manufacturing site. Think about this as a site, as a physical location. And then they may have a site at the subcontractors where they actually own inventory. So when you run MRP, when you track productions, you actually know within the system, what inventory you have there. Now, all those three sites, financials, manufacturing perhaps, and subcontracting sites could be part of, let's say, Canada Inc., right? One company. And then they may actually be maybe a distributor, maybe they have a distribution warehouse and a US company for their US sales. So on the US side, maybe they have 1 or 2 sites, and that site is tied to US Corp, US Inc., right? So now those 2 sites would be tied to the US ones. So there's means, and we'll see this shortly, but there's means, actually, let me just flip to that. So there's means to go and group group sites and group companies, so you can then do consolidations, but do consolidated reportings based on, again, perhaps you want to look at sites from sites by province, or a site by, maybe you've got 5 companies operating in Canada, but you want to see all my sites for the Maritimes, all the sites for Central Canada, all the sites for West Canada, right? So again, a site, it's a one-to-one, so a site to a company, and then you can have multiple sites in a company, and you can have multiple companies, I guess, in the database. Multi. Okay. So process flows, again, when we're talking about intuitive, when we're talking about like rapid implementation, again, rapid doesn't mean like a month or 2 months, and we'll talk about the project timelines later today. But rapid means, or intuitive means that from a user perspective, you don't have to go and navigate through tons of menus to get to where you need, right? When you look at this landing page here on the main page, there's a lot of process here, but if Denis, as the, maybe as the plant manager, is running MRP and perhaps just doing planning on manufacturing, I could design a workflow with just those 2 shortcuts, and that's it, and then perhaps add the shortcuts to the reports that I use day in, day out, right? So you can make it very, very intuitive, very, very easy to use, okay? The other mean as well to navigate is through the compass. So if I click on the compass here, this is I'm going to say the long way of navigating. So through this, you have access to the different modules on the left-hand side here. And then within the modules, I have access, like if I click on sales, and then if I click on orders, that's another mean to go to the sales orders, right? So from the compass, it's kind of interesting because it seems like in North America, users seem to use the visual process, the process flows. In Europe, they tend to use the actual function keys. So if I just hover over, I know the screen is kind of small here, but if I just hover over the orders screen, just below my hand here, you see the function and GESSON. So if I came here and type GESSON, it's gonna basically open up. Let me just open sales, orders. I think it's GESSON. Let me just make it bigger. Sales and orders. There you go. GSSOH, right? So GSSOH. So if I type in just GSSOH, guess what? I'm actually now at the sales order screen. So that's another mean as well through the compass. If you have functions that you're day in, day out that you're accessing, you can just type in the function and then it's a shortcut to access it. Okay. The other mean as well is through the compass, or through the long way of navigating. You'll notice on the top menu here, you can see customers, suppliers, products, menu items. So that's my favorite bar. So if I go in here again through the compass, click on the right place. If I go through the compass and I wanted to, I don't know, let's look at costing perhaps and standard costs. So let me just look for. That's what standard cost. Okay, so if I actually look at standard costing, stranded, if I can type. There you go. So if I look at standard costs, that's what COVID did to me. I used to work with my laptop all the time, and now I've got a separate keyboard, so I've got to get used to the typing. So if you look at standard costs, you'll notice that next to the standard cost, there's a star. So I can actually add items or shortcuts or functions to my favorite bar. So for instance, if I look at the versions here, and if I click on that star, you'll notice that the version is now added. So there's actually a little bit too much, a bit too much on it. But if I click on the manage bookmarks, you'll actually see my list of bookmarks, right? Version is now added. So there's means, and again, we typically on a day-to-day basis, we're typically into 1, 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 different functions max. So you have the ability to add those favorites. And then if you, all of a sudden, you're no longer dealing with version management, I can just go into my favorites and then remove the version control. I can also, hide that toolbar. So from a real estate perspective, especially right now where I'm kind of fighting for real estates or resolution, so that favorite bar can be hidden. Okay. You'll notice as well is pretty much all the screens have 3 panels. So right now, thank you. So right now, if you're into, for instance, a sales order screen. Okay, so let's just open up the sales order screen. The left panel is all context sensitive, of course. Right now I'm into the sales order, so if I'm looking for a sales order, I have different columns or different fields that I can search by, whether it's by site, whether it's by sold to, whether it's by order number, reference. I can search, and again, this goes throughout the software, right? I can search for data that contains, starts with, ends with, greater than, if you're dealing with dates. Okay, those fields that I see on the left from a searching perspective can be modified. So I can move columns around if I want to. That's the easy part. I can also go and modify which columns that I can search by. Okay, and again, that's so the left-hand side panel, you'll see me navigating through the next few sessions. I'll be using these to go and retrieve transactions, but that can be modified. Again, context sensitive. Right now we're looking for sales orders, so you'll see the list of orders. Okay. The other side is the right-hand panel. So there's on the ellipses here. If I click on the ellipses, I'm able to pin this down, and then again, depending on which screen I have open, I've got different functions available to me. Okay. So I can, again, if I'm fighting for real estate, I can pin or unpin this. I kind of like to have this as hidden, so it gives me more room for my actual data entry screen or for my master records if I'm adding business partners or adding products or accounts. Okay, so again, all the functions are all context sensitive, of course. And then you have the main panel. So your main sections. Let me just open up the sales orders here. So from the main panel. You have blocks. Terminology in X3 is blocks, but you have different sections, if you will, of the screen. So you have, in this case, from a sales order, when you think about it, you would have the management piece on the sales order header, the delivery piece, where in this case, which warehouse or which site I'm delivering from, the invoicing piece, the lines, so the detail sections, and delivery and regulatory. So depending on which screen I have open, if I look at a product screen, for instance, I'm going to have a lot more. Let me just open up show my favorite bar. I'm just going to click on the product field, and you'll see that there's a lot more blocks on this, right? So I can hide my left panel, and then I can basically have access to all of my different blocks. So if I go straight to if I want to basically add a supplier to a product, I could go straight to the supplier block and then add my supplier to it. Okay, so again, that's the main screen. Things like jumping to, so you don't have to go and exit or log out or open another screen. So if I'm looking at at a product, for instance, and I want to see, I see the product category here. Whenever you see that arrow, you can actually click on it and you can jump to the category. So if you're creating a new customer, you're realizing that now you may want to add a new category to maybe the different types of customers that you're creating, then you can jump to the category from there. Everywhere you see the ellipse, and then if you want to exit that, then there's kind of that little that right arrow with that door, and then you're back on the screen, on that previous screen. Okay. So navigating through the different screens is quite easy. And then everywhere that you see those ellipses, right? Let me just go back to the products. If I go to let me just drill down again to the finance category. And if I look at, let's say there's a product sequence here, I can jump to it. Or I sometimes will have additional functions available when you see those ellipses. Okay. You can have multiple screens open at the same time. So right now, if I'm I'm into products, and perhaps I want to look at a business partner. So perhaps I'm looking at the supplier, and there's a supplier NA021. I mean, I could go in here and, then go to the, jump to the supplier, or perhaps I actually want the supplier screen and make some modifications, but I don't want to go away or move away from my product screen. So what you can do is on the Sage logo on the top left, if you right click and go open link in a new tab, you can have unlimited number of tabs open, so different screens open, okay? Now, if I'm doing this from the same browser, I'm only consuming one user. So they're called badges, but I'm not consuming a second license, if you will, okay? For some of you that are in the Sage 300 or ACPAC world, LAN packs, we have similar things. I mean, they're concurrent users in X3, but if you open those with the same browsers, you're not consuming an extra license for this. Now, if I was to open this into, right now I'm using I'm using Chrome. If I was to use Edge and open a second one, now I'm consuming another license, okay? If you bought, let's say you bought 5 license, I'm the 6th user trying to get in, it'll simply tell you, sorry, but there's no more badges available. What you do is you assign a badge to a profile or to a user. So when you log in, it's going to basically look at consuming that badge. Not to get into too deep on licensing, but badges can be a full user. You can also buy operational users. You can buy a financial user, which is a reduced price license. And you can buy also operational, so distribution, manufacturing users, which give them limited access to the software. Now again, true security throughout the X3, whether you want to limit users to screens, companies, sites, I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can limit by data, but also limit by functions. But another mean as well is to, again, if you buy a distribution license, you wouldn't, and you assign this to a user, you wouldn't have access to the financials function.
Does that also apply to the warehouse management portion? If you've got people in your warehouse scanning,
yep. Good question. Yeah, good questions. There's also mobile device users, so that's another piece as well. So there's right now, because this is web based, right? So I can access this through any devices. There's also with X3, it comes with ADC, so automatic data collection. So those screens that have been designed to accommodate, to basically be, readable through, I'm showing my iPhone, but through ruggedized device. But what you would do for those users is you would buy mobile licenses. Again, reduced price, reduced functionality as far as what you can do with those users. But again, from a warehousing perspective, shipping, receiving, physical counts, shop floor control, if you're tracking production, tracking time, tracking material consumptions on the production line, those would be reduced license, if you will, or mobile users. Back to the navigation, if I just close this, let's say that I'm into product right now, and it's like, okay, I want to go back to my home screen. So if you want to go back to your landing page, if you click on the actual Sage logo, it'll bring you back. I'm going to cancel the modifications. It'll bring you back to the landing page. Okay. So again, just a few tips and tricks. I just want to show you how powerful it is to navigate through the system. The idea is investing time to go and build those or modify those pre-designed or pre-built process flows. I'll tell you, I mean, I demo X3 often for different verticals, different industries. I try to tailor those as much as I can, but I mean, for the most part, I don't start the workflows from scratch. I mean, I'll typically use a pre-built workflow, a process that's in the system, perhaps make sure that the functionality that I want to touch base on is actually in here. If not, perhaps add the functions, remove, tidy up the ones that are not applicable perhaps for that customer, make it look cleaner, and then off I go. Okay? Because that's one thing, I mean, with X3 or with any software, right, with flexibility comes complexity, right? You don't want to overwhelm, and sometimes it's not a matter of just security, but it's more a matter of ease of use. Again, it's got to be intuitive. It's got to be, if there's 20 fields I don't need to fill in, well, let's just remove those fields. So those are the types of functionality within X3. You'll notice that when I go into the sales order entry, it's asking me for to select a transaction type. So those are, again, customizable, and you can add more to it. They're basically a transaction type that dictates what? That dictates predefined settings. So if I'm going into, if I want to do like a loan order, if I want to do a standard order, if I want to do an order, but it's a pretty straightforward or simple ones, that entry transaction screens can actually have limited number of fields. So if if I go to a full order entry screen, I'll just show you quickly. So it's got a lot of fields, all the sections here. Okay. Now, if I just exit and go back to my, let me go back to my landing page and go to the sales orders and go into I don't know, maybe a fast start direct invoice screen, right? You'll notice that there's a lot less field there's still a few, but there's a lot less when it comes to the shipping sites. I mean, we have management, we have delivery, invoice lines, right? So we don't have the whole shipping from block or sections. Just to touch base on the architecture just quickly again, if you look at the organization, right? Again, everything is tied to a site, and then sites would be tied to companies, so a company can have multiple sites. And then let's say that I wanted to, this is like, let's say NA11, NA12, NA20, 21, 22, 23. What I could do is leverage the grouping to say, you know what, maybe those are all North American sites, independently of the company. Perhaps let's assume that this is my Canadian company, US company, but I wanted to report based on all of my North American sites. I could create a site group that includes my NA11, 12, 21, 22, 23. Again, transactions that are flowing from 21 will go to company NA20, but I can create a grouping that allows me to then report on that. Okay, so very, very much easy to do different groupings. The other thing as well is on the from a dimensional accounting, right? The traditional accounting structure. I know some of you that are on Sage 300, you typically would have the natural account and then perhaps a segment for the division, segment for the department, maybe a segment for the market type or the product type. So with X3, instead of having segments on your account itself, you would basically have the account as a natural account. A lot of times there's divisions perhaps could be marked as sites. Okay, so that's natural. There's already a field identified for this. And then you would have your dimensions. Dimensions would be tied to, let's say, product type. Well, a product type, if it's, not retail or wholesale, but if it's, I don't know, maybe, trying to think of a good example here from let's say, medical device. I mean, if it's maybe the different types of yeah, so if I don't know, let's say medical device, you have maybe the like, I'm drawing a blank here. I'm sorry? Yeah, capital device, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So let's say you have a capital device and then consumables, right? So maybe those dimensions would be tied to the product. Every time you sell the product, naturally or automatically, that dimensions would be tagged to the transactions and then flow into the financials. Okay. On the other side, maybe you want to track the market type. Is it the wholesale, retail? Maybe you want to track the region, right? Region dimension could be tagged to the customer. So automatically, when you look at the dimensions coming in from the product and dimensions coming in from the customer, all of those naturally will flow into the GL. And then from a GL perspective, do an analysis by, again, here's my revenue. Well, revenue by what? Then you get into the dimension. Revenue by site, revenue by product type, revenue by region. Okay, so it makes it super powerful for, again, organization that wants to do that has different dimensions or different ways that they want to slice and dice things. And when you think about a multi-company, multi-sites, again, becomes very easily to come in and consolidate the products. Another multi-part as well as the ledgers. Every company can have up to 10 ledgers. And I'll give you an example. So you have a Canadian company. Maybe they're distributing, manufacturing, there's two sites. Then you have the US company that's a counterpart. So Canadian company is as a Canadian source currency. US company as you need to report in US, but consolidation-wise, you want to consolidate in Canadian. So what you could do is the legal ledger for company one could be Canadian, legal ledger for company two, the US could be US, and then in both companies you could activate, let's say, ledger 4 or ledger 2, and that ledger in both companies would be in Canadian. And then that ledger could be an automatic ledger. So every transactions you post into the source and legal ledger would automatically be posted as well in that subsequent ledger. In the case of Canadian, everything would basically flow in Canadian, let's say 1 for 1. In the case of the US, if you're reporting in functional US, then you could use translation rate, daily translation rate to populate ledger 4. So you have up to 10 ledgers per company. Again, pretty powerful from a reporting perspective.